it is 10:32, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. My name is Chris Ferguson. I'm the Assistant Dean of Libraries at Murray State University. I'm here today to introduce this session. They didn't teach this in library school. I always like to do this just to kind of see, quick show of hands, how many folks here are new to the Charleston Conference? This is your first Charleston Conference. Fantastic, excellent. All right, thank you for coming. We're glad to have you here. I'm going to introduce you to Lindsay Cronk. She is the head of collection strategies, is that correct? At the University of Rochester. Unfortunately, Lindsay's co-presenter, Rachel Fleming, who is in charge of collection initiatives at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, she's not feeling well today. So Lindsay's going to hold down the fort on her own. And I'm going to block the exit way from the stage, so if she gets scared, she's not going to be able to leave. We are glad to have you here, and if anybody has any questions, you can direct them Lindsay's way. All right, thank you very much.
Good morning, Charleston. How's everyone doing? I'm excited there are so many first-timers in this crowd. It's my favorite scene. I want to thank all of you for choosing this session. The Neapolitans are always one of my favorite parts, right? And when I get to be in the big room, I get a little excited. As Chris noted, my colleague, collaborator, and personal hero, Rachel Fleming, injured her back doing an act so heroic, so incredibly brave and strong, so top secret that I can't even talk about it. But I am still, as you can tell, excited to talk about our work, and those of you who know me know I am a ham bone, and so I don't mind talking for two. It's a treat to do a Neapolitan. I consider Charleston my home base conference, the conference where I grew up and sort of graduated as an acquisitions and collections librarian, a place that always feels like coming home. One of my favorite analogies that Rachel always uses when she's talking about collections librarians is she says that we're the designated hitters of acquisitions, right? Between the two of us, we have close to 30 years of collective acquisitions and collections experience, and that is in no small part due to the fact that acquisitions work has always been our work in libraries. Once you're in, you're in. Can I see a quick round of hands? How many people in the room have been doing acquisitions work for 10 or more years? Nice. 5 or more? Okay. 2 or more? Work, in my opinion, is the way that when you're hired for a position, people assume an incredible breadth of knowledge, right? Upside, you get to run literally everything. You're in charge of the budget, you're in charge of buying everything, you get to come up with cool collection strategies if you're me, but the downside is, it is literally impossible to know everything. And even after almost 3 decades at it together, we still have a lot to learn. Let's get another round of hands. Who feels like they know everything about collections work? That's what I thought. Who still feels like they have a ton to learn? Awesome. I am living for this candor. Starting out, we both completed some coursework that did things to prepare us for things like reading licenses. I had one class that actually taught me actively how to fear licenses. Did you guys know I'm not a lawyer? Another class covered collection development and touched on negotiations. I had one that talked about metadata, particularly vendor records. None of them taught me what the work would look like. And what would that course even be called, is my question to you. Maybe a guide for buying absolutely everything? I was unprepared for my first position in academic libraries, and that's despite on-the-job work experience in consortia. Before I worked at the University of Rochester, where I am now head of collection strategies, I had the good fortune to work with an amazing team at the University of Houston as their coordinator of online resources and collections, right? The e-resources side. At University of Rochester, I'm lucky enough to get to deal with print, too. And then before that, I worked in consortia at Lyrasis, doing large-scale license negotiations and member support. So I've seen my way around a few pieces, right, of our grand landscape. But I can tell you, there is still and always a lot to learn. A mentee recently asked me if I knew everything by the time I got started in my current position, and again, the answer is no. though I do know an awful lot more. Getting started, I made hilarious and embarrassing mistakes all the time. Some quick anecdotals. I called OCLC OLCO for years on my CV. I still can't keep track of which counter report is which. Apologies, Oliver and Athena. Some Charleston specific examples. I thought Katina was an acronym. It turns out she's Katina Stausch, the cool lady who founded this conference. And I didn't understand at my first Charleston conference why Anthony was ringing a bell, but that's just what he does. We know from talking to other acquisitions workers that our experiences are par for the course, which is of course not to say that there is not a great amount of resources that are out there, from books to resources like core competencies, annotated lists of standards, all kinds of really cool stuff, which some of you have probably been involved in creating or building. Thank you for that. Thinking back to my first days in the job, if we all in this room thought back on them, none of these resources were something that really said, here you go, here is exactly the information that you can apply right now. So when Rachel and I were talking one day, and we thought, listen, we, and I mean we, the collective we here, we could do this better if we came together. We could do a better job making it easier for folks coming into the profession new. We thought, let's try it, right? Wouldn't that be cool? What if we identified those core knowledges and worked together to put something together? So today is all about sharing and making space so that that discussion can happen, right? I certainly have some ideas. You guys know I always have ideas. I always have strong opinions about pieces that are missing, right, from the way we address this as a profession. But this is a space for all of us to be kind to one another, to be candid with each other, and to be welcome in one another's presence, to do something together. So we wanted to have this conversation with you, but the issue is that this is a Neapolitan session, and there are an awful lot of you, right? So you've got a handout, or you should have a handout, and that's designed so that you can basically give us the feedback in the form that you choose. Not everyone's a talker like me, and I'm totally okay with that, right? So if you're not a talker, you're just gonna write, you're gonna have some opportunities to talk with one another, of course. And I will also be sharing a survey link for those of you who really like to marinate on your thoughts, right, and put it in a survey. Don't worry, we're gonna catch you. So let me go through our goals for today's discussion really quickly. The first and single most important goal is to have a positive discussion. No grousing, y'all. We want to do a better job at making things better, which what I mean by that is more clear, right? Less isolating for new acquisitions professionals. And that requires some thinking, but it doesn't really require complaining or blaming. We want to focus on the future. Well, actually, Rachel's gone, so you can't complain just a little. But mostly I'm joking. Good vibes only, please. So the other goal is to present positive pathways forward. The discussion is going to be focused on what do we need, right? What are we identifying and what should happen next? As a group, we're definitely going to be doing some reminiscing. I'm going to ask you to go back to that first day at your first job, right? But this is all about how we move forward and build something together for people who are just getting started. And for those of us who could use a refresher. The third goal is to gather information. And this is our final goal for today. From all of the smaller discussions that you're going to have with each other and all the things we share in this room, we're going to use that information to start building forward, to start creating a resource or resources that we need. So let's get to it. There's the question of the problem versus the problem. I want to start with the title of the presentation, and let me check with you all. Is they didn't teach this in library school, something you've heard related to acquisitions work. Has anyone heard this? Hands up. Is it something you've said? Me too. So let's think about all the things they didn't teach us at first. Take a minute and think about all the things that constitute acquisitions work. And on the very first page of your handout, jot down what you are thinking of as the most important things for beginning acquisitions workers to know. There are a couple of prompts on that handout for you in case you get stuck. I'm going to give you exactly 2 minutes, and for some of you this is going to be excruciating. But take 2 minutes and think about it, and All right, guys. Let's get back together for 1 second. Oh dear, stop. Technology. Okay, so let's get back together for a second, and then we're going to start thinking again. And I know that this can feel a little weird, right? But the thing about conferences like this is we're almost always being confronted by so much information, right? We're almost always being confronted by stats and data and approaches, and all of that is beautiful and valuable. Part of what I need in this session is reflection, right? And for me, that's not always the most comfortable thing. Part of the reason I set the timer is otherwise I will start talking to you in the middle of the reflection, right? So let's go with it again. Let's go back together and flip the page of your handout. Here's what I want you to do. Close your eyes. Really, close your eyes, and I want you to visualize and remember walking into work on the first day of the first job that requires you to do any acquisitions work. For some of you, this might be a long time ago, or maybe it was last month, but remember what it felt like to be brand new at all of this. So get yourself there. Maybe you sat down at that desk for the first time, felt that sense of pride. I remember sitting down, and it was the first office I'd ever had, right? Good. So get yourself there. Now think about how you learned those core skills you just jotted down on that first page. Take a couple of minutes, write down some notes. All right, you guys are warriors. I love it. So let's come back together again. When we say they didn't teach this in library school, I want to know, after what you wrote on that first page, did they teach you what you've written down in library school? Raise your hand if a classroom environment would have been your preferred way to learn those skills. That's what I thought. So there are some ways that you would prefer to learn these skills. Does anyone have any thoughts around it? There's a mic. You can shout it. I'll repeat it.
I'll bring it around.
Oh my gosh, we have assistants. Extremely big bucks. Okay, in the back we've got some hands. I love it.
Oh, this isn't wireless. I'm not gonna do it. I can't bring it up. I'm sorry.
Hey there, Damon Campbell, Acquisitions Librarian at the University of Oregon.
Damon, it's so awesome to meet you in person.
Good meeting you. I had a class that mentioned acquisitions in one chapter, and that was it. So everything I learned on the job, and I think that's probably the way I would have learned best anyway. But that was my experience.
That's an awesome observation, and I think for many of us, it's the way too.
I started out as a supervisor of acquisitions with no acquisitions background.
Oh my gosh.
I did everything else in libraries, but no acquisitions. So I asked people, and then I'd try stuff myself, make mistakes, and go back and ask people. And then I'd try reading documentation that made no sense to me and confused me, and I'd go back and ask people. So for me, the best way to learn definitely was talking with other people who knew what they were doing.
I think that that's such a fabulous observation. Thank you. What do we got?
My name is Courtney Hunt. I'm the Collection Development and Assessment Librarian here at College of Charleston, and I am a very new librarian, but have been doing some collection work, thank you, since I was library staff, and again, asking people, being given the agency to make those mistakes, and then be able to ask people. And also, I think it starts in the hiring process, when we recognize that people need to be hired without having those skills necessarily, because tech service type jobs have a very long list of requirements, almost always, and if they're willing to hire early career librarians and teach them, they need to say so.
Absolutely. So I'm sorry, go ahead. Please, get in there.
Jump right in. Two things. David Brennan. I'm at McDaniel College. I have the title way too long. I've been doing this forever, and I started out as a solo librarian, so I had nobody to ask. And you just have to have a very high tolerance for mistakes and ambiguity. But I wanted to toss out to the whole room that, I'm heading towards the end of my career. My team are all past retirement age. How do we get people to want to do this?
Exactly.
That is that we're desperate for people that want to do this. And I talk about the skill set too a lot. And especially for something like acquisitions, we may even be to the point of hiring someone that says, may have like an inventory background or a banking background that they've got that concept, but then we can teach them the skill set.
Absolutely. When I moved from e-resources into print management, I started to read a bunch of supply chain management journals, right? The skills and where we're getting the information, it's always in flux. Go right ahead.
Hi there. My name's Eleanor Cook, and I'm the Assistant Director for Discovery and Technology Services at East Carolina, and I've been in the business for over 30 years. And I would like to give a plug for the Fundamentals of Acquisitions course that's supported by ALAX and ALA. And it doesn't solve every problem, but it gives people the basic background they need to know about acquisitions. And there are several courses for electronic resources, for basic acquisitions. There's collection, there's all these other ones too. So that didn't exist when I first started, obviously, but I think mostly it's on the job training.
Yes. I've had the good luck to attend a few of those fundamentals classes, and they're just extraordinary, right? But, oh, go ahead, please get in there. Oh, this is so exciting. I love audience participation.
I just felt an urge to contribute. My name is Fanuel Chirombo. I'm the acquisitions librarian at Morgan State University in Maryland. Originally, I come from Zimbabwe. So that's where I did my training in acquisition work. I was a little bit fortunate in that acquisitions was one of the core courses that we would take for the diploma in library science at a community college in Zimbabwe. So it actually really prepared me for acquisitions work. And when I migrated to the United States of America, I took the fundamentals in acquisitions. It gave me a very good background on what to expect in acquisition work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. The thing that I want to share, and the thing I think we mean when we say they didn't teach this in library school, is it helps us all feel a little bit better about being unprepared, right? It's like a blanket we wrap ourselves in because they didn't, and we didn't have perfect knowledge, and we don't have perfect knowledge, and we're all still operating, right, in the way that many of the people just described. Many of you will have encountered this. You figure it out through piecing it together, right, through making mistakes. My question and my thought, our questions and our thoughts as we put this together is we have nothing but love and respect for the professional education we've been lucky enough to receive. My MLIS gave me exactly what I asked for, enough background to hack it, the chance to network, and important to me, it was local and affordable. My instructors were attentive and kind. I want to give a quick plug to Valdosta State University, and while I'm at it, Georgia and Atlanta libraries generally for helping me get my start. But I digress. I am here to absolve library school. Let's absolve library school. Even if we did learn this in library school, it wouldn't have been enough. You're learning everything else too. I took a bunch of classes about reference and outreach that are infinitely valuable to me in my work in technical services. I see some of you, and a class here or there, an Alex Fundamentals class is awesome. I could see a class even in library school that has you do an actual budget projection, not that fluffy 10 to 15 line template that we put together, right? Or a multi-year inflationary calculation. It might have been helpful, but I don't think that assignment would have been anything less than a bear to create, administer, or grade. Or that class I suggested before, jokingly, how to buy absolutely everything. I don't think that's a reasonable ask of library school, right? Or really anyone. I'd argue that part of what happens when we say they didn't teach this in library school is that we defer our responsibilities to one another, right? We need to look out for each other and keep ourselves and our colleagues up to date with everything that keeps changing. And because it changes so fast, that means that we can't always capture it, right, in a book or a white paper. We hit and confront the same issues of publication and the scholarly record that our faculty members and researchers do in this way. I'd argue, again, a respected colleague of mine recently was complaining to me that a book he had written on a topic of cybersecurity had already become out of date by the time it was published, right? So when we're talking about mergers and acquisitions, when we're talking about changing systems, when we're talking about the scholarly landscape, nothing's going to be published in a format that makes sense. The information will be immediately out of date, and that's the breaks. We need to figure this out together, though, and support each other like good communities do. Not only do products, processes, and priorities change, the ways that we can learn things change too. It doesn't have to be a formal course all the time, or a formal channel, and it doesn't have to be something that's a proprietary service that we pay for either. We have an opportunity as people who know about the scholarly resources landscape to model something better than a 30-page white paper that is just on one aspect of what we do from a nonprofit consultant. Something better than an online course that we often procrastinate during because we are too busy doing our own work. Something lasting and living and integrated into our work. But also that represents what our work means to the profession, a commitment to sustainable sharing. So I'm gonna give you guys the opportunity to come to the mic more and to talk to each other a little more in this next section. We're all going to get together and talk. After all the time you took to sort of time travel and reflect, I'm going to bring you back together. I have a few prompts that I hope will get you thinking a little bit more deeply about the core knowledges and skills we started to talk about earlier. We're going to do a think and pair exercise with just the tiniest bit of sharing, right? So that we're keeping track of our time. There are so many of you. I want us to be able to go in depth, but I also want us to be respectful of everyone's time. So seize this opportunity to make connections and share in small groups. Keep in mind, we will follow up later on those notes that you leave in your handouts. And the way this will go is that you're going to get some time to think on your own and make some notes on the prompt, and then we'll give you time to pair up and share with someone near you for a couple of minutes. Then we will come back together and maybe coalesce some good themes. I hope that sounds good. Otherwise, we'll just enjoy each other's company. So here is prompt number 1. Back again, you're on your first day at work. You've got your fancy outfit on. If you're me, it's always a fancy outfit. We want to focus on the thing that worried you the most. What were you most worried about? Take a minute. So we'll come back together at 11. Okay, so now turn to a neighbor, do a very brief introduction if you don't know them already, and share with them what your worry was. This is a safe space. Talk together about the rest of the prompts you find on that page. Take 3 minutes together and then we'll come back together, okay? I love it. Back to us. I love it. I love this chatty room. You guys are amazing. I love it. Thank you. Let's come back together. If anyone wants to take the mic and really ham on a worry, you just let me know. But let's do a quick survey with hands. How many of you had worries about vendors? How many of you had worries about technology? How many of you had worries about money and budgeting and purchasing? Any other huge worries we need to talk about? Getting sued. Completely fair. Oh. Dude. Sorry, it has a mind of its own. Please.
Being found out of what we don't know.
Oh, imposter syndrome, one of my faves. Never goes away, never goes away. Anything else?
Outreach and politics.
Outreach and politics. Politics are a pain. Yes? Oh, the very delicate minuet of not stepping on people's toes. Workflows, guys. What have we got? Workload. How do you order everything? Anything else? Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Being good stewards of the funds, right, buying the right stuff is a continuing source of anxiety. Anything else? Yes. Making mistakes. I would say it's been interesting in libraries since I started to watch this transition, right, where we, when I first started off, making a mistake was absolutely my biggest fear. And now I work at an organization, and I've worked with organizations, plural, right, that really extol that you should fail fast, right, that you should take risks. And it's so hard, right, to dismantle that fear inside of yourself, especially when you're playing with budgets, right? Like there's a whole different level of anxiety and fear around that. Good one. Anything else? Oh, negotiating, yeah. I live for it now, but it took a quick minute. You guys ready for the next one? You get to talk again, and I know you love it. Okay. It's your first day as an acquisitions worker. You don't have any of the knowledge you have now. What did you feel the most unprepared for? Take a minute, think about it. All right, everybody back? Okay, what did we feel unprepared for? Institutional process. That was absolutely one of mine too. I was fully unprepared for reconciling, right, two systems. Just completely caught off guard. It was ridiculous. Anything else? Yes.
Managing staff when all of them had been there doing it much longer than I had.
All the time. She said managing staff when they'd been there much longer than she had. Yes. Lack of documentation around workflow. That is a good and classic one. The thing is, it's interesting. I always think about this idea of, because I make documents all the time, and I try to label them, right? But I always think of those as my gifts to future me's, right? Like future people who will be in these jobs, just explaining why we do the things we do and how the processes are in place. It's a big deal. Anything else? Yes. Oh, data extraction and analysis. It's getting what you need out of some of these aging SQL databases can be a pain in the behind. Yes, what do we got? We've got a public service person who went to technical services and like, where are all the people? And I've been there too, gal. I've sat on both sides. It is a weird in-between spot, right? That collections acquisition spot. Anything else? Okay, it's our last prompt. And we're gonna just, let's see. We're gonna talk about this one really quickly, just so I have time to wrap it up with you guys. Was there anything in particular that surprised you? Just take a minute, not even a minute, right? Take 30 seconds, think about it, and then I'm gonna ask you. Okay, does anyone have some surprises to share? Yes?
Well, I went to the library where I was a liaison librarian and I did all the ordering for my liaison area. And I moved to a new library where I was ordering for everyone. Like I did all the ordering.
Can everyone hear him?
Was no fun codes.
Oh.
And I was looking at my library because the previous librarian we realized we were having a whole spate of retirements. So they did a big transition plan. So I worked at the former acquisition library for 2 years. And I asked her, why no fun codes? My previous one, we had fun codes, and I had things, ridiculous things which were done for good studies. I had $100 to spend for the entire year for that one fun code.
Oh, no.
It was useless. And she said, in publishing, there's certain trends that happen. And when you see a bunch of books on a certain topic, you grab that. And I came to realize that last year when Martin Luther books were the big rage in history. Like, this is the time that I get Martin Luther books. That's just what it's happened. So no fun codes was surprising and just fantastic.
So we have someone who is past fun codes, and I love it. Anything else? Surprises? Yes.
The amount of math I had to do.
So she just said the amount of math, and yeah, I'm with you. No, I got really into statistics. It's a whole deal. Yes. That is such a good observation. I hope someone jotted that down for a tweet. She is not a lawyer, an accountant, or a statistician. How is this our job? Yes. I'm sorry. Marketing. Very good. In the back. You first, and then you. Getting answers from the procurement office, right? So again, being in that intermediary space between the library and the university. Yes.
Related to that, lack of
So she was saying, again, that failure, that breakdown, right, between a university budget office and our offices. And I think about this actually a lot because the way we buy things in libraries is so drastically different, right, than a lot of the procurement that happens. Our volume is out of control. Like when I confront the university with our stuff, it weirds them out. You had a question? Lack of automated decision processes. You're singing the song, I'm sure, of half of this room. Yes?
How much herding of faculty I have to do to get them to buy stuff?
Yes, there's a lot of faculty herding, is what he just mentioned. Okay, and I think I saw one more, and then we're gonna. Having political leverage or not having political leverage can sink you in this role, right? Okay, guys. So that brings me to sort of a little bit of wrap up, some next steps. First of all, I want to thank you guys. Sorry, I keep looking for a slide that I thought was there. We're almost out of time, but just a couple more points, really, really fast. The results of this discussion, we promised in our abstract, which undoubtedly you read, you pored over, you enjoyed, you took notes on, right? That we would synthesize the results of this, right? So I'm going to flash forward to theaklib.org, which is the website for this project where we're trying to confront how we should be sharing these knowledges, right? And how we should be addressing this as a profession. On that site, you'll find a feedback form, a survey version of that handout you just did, right? So if you want to enter your stuff there, you want to type it out, awesome, you've made my life easier. Otherwise, please drop those handouts, right, in the box in the back. We're going to take those home. You may have noticed I pre-coded with colors, right? Learned some lessons in my acquisitions librarian experiences. But we're going to gather that up for a summary, and that will be published in the proceedings, right? And that will guide this project. What we're trying to do is figure out what needs to happen to make it so that people don't feel like they're sleuthing all the time, right? When I got into the librarianship, it really felt like I was piecing together pieces of information, and I'd like to make it easier for other people moving forward. I can't do that just myself, right? We need a lot of people involved. So if you're interested in volunteering, there's a space to fill in that too. Rachel and I are both on Twitter, and you can absolutely find us there, but the main place to find us is at theaklib, right? That's our shared Twitter account. So I can't thank you enough for your engagement during this this presentation. Because we are at time, I'm gonna let you go, but if you wanna talk to me offline, you just find me, okay? Thank you, everyone. You were such a treat. Such a good crowd.